Good afternoon, everyone. I am Rich Bonine. I'll be the moderator for today's panel discussion. I'm an architect and design principal at HGA. All of HGA's offices across the country are deeply involved in their local CoreNet chapters. A lot of them fueled by the fun energy of people like Jen Bottomley here in the Mid-Atlantic chapter. The focus of my career has been on workplace design and workplace strategy. And like all of you, in the 25 years I've been at this, I've not seen a single disruptor like COVID-19 has been for us all. And it's not something that just has financial implications, but social implications as well, and makes all of us question how we work in offices. And you know, this is a continually evolving discussion, and it's now, of course, made even more complicated by the recent social unrest we've all been seeing. But today we're going to try to keep our focus on the topic of COVID-19. And again, like all of you, you know, I've spent my career working on kind of trying to make offices better places to be. And I was kind of thinking the other day, in some ways I feel a little bit like a weatherman that got the weekend forecast wrong, where all of the things that we've been talking about now seem to be turned on their head a little bit based on new requirements of how we might occupy the office again. We have some really insightful panelists joining us today, and they'll have some great conversation and things to say. But what'll make this even more interesting is to get questions from you all, the audience. So we're happy to take questions. Go to your on your GoToWebinar dashboard, you'll find a questions box, and please submit your questions through that function. And then we'll do our best to answer as many questions as we can during the presentation. And we'll weave those into the conversation that we'll have here. And that conversation is really going to focus on how changes to workplace behaviors affect future design standards for open plan and private offices, ancillary and collaboration space, and looking at corporate culture and even into change management. So let's introduce our panel here and understand the things that they've been thinking about in their various roles. So Stacy, ladies first, let's start with you.
Sure. So Stacy Cohen, the Senior Director of Facilities and Services for Marriott International. I've been in that role for about 20 years with the company, that role a bit shorter, but the whole time with facilities. My role is running our corporate headquarters building, but then also we are designing our headquarters of the future, which will come online in 2022. So it's also helping with that project on a great team of people to make sure that we have the right space that we need when we are ready to occupy.
And obviously travel has been so affected by what's going on, and it'll be really interesting to hear what you have to say about kind of your business and how you reoccupy your headquarters. Adam, let's hear from you.
Great, thank you for having me. Adam Cook here. I'm a managing director with Jones Lang LaSalle's Mid-Atlantic region. I work on the project management side of our business, so I help clients with portfolio capital projects and construction and renovation projects, working on several headquarters projects currently, as well as other projects in life science, higher education, healthcare, etc. But recently, I've become our re-entry expert, so I've been consulting with many organizations, helping ratify and execute their re-entry strategy. So it's interesting to see across sectors and across countries how the re-entry planning and implementation is affecting all ilks, no matter not-for-profits, public companies, as well as other smaller groups and large groups alike.
Well, we're going to have some questions for you. Dean, how about you?
So my name is Dean Edelman. I am Vice President of Real Estate and Facilities Operations for Booz Allen Hamilton. We are a global firm, a couple million square feet, 140 locations. And from a firm-wide perspective, we have been operating on a mandatory telework policy since March 17th. So, I think the discussion today is very timely. Our belief right now is that telework for us has been working pretty well, and we're going to go about this very cautiously as going forward, but looking forward to the discussion.
Yeah, we're looking forward to hearing more from you.
Mm-hmm.
And then finally, Dan.
Yes, good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for joining. So my name is Dan Wright. I'm the head of global real estate for ICF. We're headquartered in Fairfax, Virginia. We have about 100 sites globally, and like Stacy, we have a new corporate headquarters that will be coming online in the fall of 2022. So we have a little over 2 years to figure it out. And but like Dean, we're at about 100% teleworking at the moment. So we're looking forward to coming back to work, but that will not be till September 1st at the earliest. So look forward to the discussion.
Yeah, Dan and Stacy, we're going to really be curious to hear what you have to say as you're in the midst of planning your next facilities. Let's just start with a couple of really quick flash questions, and raise your hands to just understand kind of where each of you are in your organizations. Raise your hand if you're now open or partially open in some form.
Well,
Right.
we have skeleton crew. I mean, if that's partial, that's partial. We're not closed.
Yeah. How is it determined who the skeleton crews are? Really essential people, or?
Yeah, I'll speak for me. So we have some facilities folks. Our mailroom is still open, and things like that. We don't have a receptionist or anything like that, but there are some people who have to come in to, cut checks for accounts payable and those types of things. So it's really just essential. If you just want to get out of the house and come to work, we're not allowing that.
Mm-hmm. And Marriott is much in the same boat as Dan. It's really business essential, critical people, some facilities, and some folks that really need to come to the building, but not those that want to.
And for JLL domestically, we've seen, certain offices like Dallas, for instance, reopen because municipalities are directing that behavior. But predominantly, the reopening we've seen is overseas. So lessons learned from Asia Pacific and our European colleagues and their activities, which are guiding the new principles we're lending to our clients in North America.
And with Booz Allen, I would say 2/3 of our sites are fully closed. The other third are partially open, and in each of those cases, I'll just say that we have, we're supporting various agencies within the government, mission essential, secure spaces, that type of thing. And to Dan's point, if those facilities need support from mailroom and facility and so forth, we have that.
How about, are any of you changing the ratios of open plan or closed office spaces within your office when you go back to it?
So I'll take that if you want. We at the moment, we're not going to change the space. We're just going to change the way we utilize it. In other words, instead of having 12 people in a normal work setting, if you have 12 workstations, instead of having 12 people, we'll have less than that, whatever that number is, probably less than 6. So that's kind of the way we're looking at it today. Could change, right? But I've got some time to figure that out. But for today, that's what we're looking at.
Yeah, because you said you're not going back until September. So.
Right, and that will be even at a very low percentage, probably 10%, 25 at the most.
So phased return.
Correct.
How about the rethinking of amenity or collaboration spaces where people gather? Again, raise your hand if that's something that you think you're going to change upon reentry.
Well,
Yeah.
we'll still have those amenities. Excuse me. It's just
Yeah.
the, instead of usual 12 people in that space, it'll only be 5 that can use it at a time.
I think all of that falls into the broad category of social distancing and sort of, we'll take some of that out. But look, I mean, I think this, I mean, generally people want to get back to the office. I think, emotionally they want to get back, but for our firm, teleworking is working and it's a safer way of doing things. And much like Dan and Stacy and Adam and many other companies out there, we're going to do this in a phase, in a very timely manner and process. I think, though, that eventually things will kind of get back to normal, for lack of a better word, once a very solid therapeutic is developed or a vaccine. But that's months away. And I think until then, you're going to see a reduced capacity, social distancing, 12-person conference rooms now hold 4 people and so forth. And, that's just going to be it for all.
So you really feel like it's more important to do it right than do it fast in this time before we get to a vaccine or a cure? Or... Absolutely.
I think, I have the benefit of talking to multiple organizations. We as a collective team, preparing for today's conversation, I think we found that many of us are on the same page with what we're thinking, and probably why people are dialing in today is because they want to know what their peer group or what other similar industry folks are thinking. That's the question I get every day. What are people in my industry doing? I want to make sure I'm not behind, but I don't want to do more. And predominantly across the board, we're promoting more education and behavioral change than we're actually promoting physical change. Now, when it comes to new spaces, I think we hear everyone talking about what's going to return to normal, but I feel like new spaces, Dan and Stacy, of course, have the opportunity to do something that's forward-looking. And while we're optimistic that COVID-19 might be the fastest vaccination ever come to market, thanks to global ingenuity, COVID-19 is one incident on a timeline of accelerating superbugs that we can predict will continue to infect the human race. So I think what we'll see in the long term is innovators like Dan and Stacy implementing policies into their new facilities potentially, and then we'll see other people start to catch up. I don't know that we'll see massive retrofitting today or tomorrow, but I think the evolution of what the office needs and should have will actually take effect long after a vaccine, hopefully, for COVID-19 becomes available to us. So we talk about this post-vaccine world, and people think it's back to normal, but for me, it's definitely going to be a next normal, because COVID-19 is, just one mark on that timeline of pandemics that is consolidating. The distance between those global activities is becoming shorter and shorter, and is predicted to continue along with that.
I think that's a really interesting distinction that you made, Adam, the difference between new normal and next normal, and that this is something that the preparedness that comes out of this will make us ready for COVID 2022 or whatever the next thing is that comes to face us.
I heard a good analogy today, and so just to make sure this new normal isn't something that sounds too scary or whatever, but you look back to 9/11, and a lot changed after that, but it's kind of, we're used to it now. And you think about the cockpit doors on an aircraft, right? I mean, those things used to be open all the time. Now they're closed, locked, and secured, and all that. And, hey, it makes a lot of sense. And
taking your shoes off at the airport, Dean? That's what I'll never get over.
I didn't want to go there because that doesn't make a lot. The cockpit door, that's a change, and it makes sense. And I think a lot of the changes that we're going to implement now, probably 3-5 years down the road, we'll look back at it and think that makes sense now. So won't be all that bad.
I do want to come back to that. I want to get our audience involved as well. And I think this is a really good topic to sort of just see the pulse of how people are feeling. So if we want to bring up the poll questions, and again, this is where you go to your dashboard and you'll see this on your screen and you'll be able to select what your thoughts are on this. And again, as I said, you can also submit any specific questions that this response here might make you think about. Give you just a few moments to answer this. I know it's the same for you all, but you know, as an architect and designer, I'm certainly seeing clients that are on this whole range of the spectrum here, from how they're feeling about what the future looks like. And then let's follow that question up with another one that just looks a bit forward into kind of how permanent you see these modifications being, and kind of goes to the topic we were just talking about. So again, if we kind of wait for our results to come in here, I think in the conversation you all were just hearing, it does feel like, at least in our group here, there's probably a focus that's a bit more on procedural and behavioral changes rather than major architectural or physical changes in the space. And as we wait for our audience response to come in here, I think maybe Dan and Stacy, maybe, you know, as we think about these long-term types of changes, and the fact that you're right in the middle of planning new facilities for yourselves, what have you been thinking about in terms of things that are different between how you'll return to your current workspace and how you're planning your new facilities?
Go ahead, Stacy.
Okay. So I think Dan and Dean mentioned this earlier, but as we approach the re-entry to our current headquarters, we are definitely approaching that in a phased approach. We kind of want a pilot group, a smaller group, to come in first, see how it's going, and then gradually enlarge that in different steps. But as we first re-enter our building, there may be some amenities closed that people are used to being open. You know, our conference rooms, congregation spaces, those might be closed off for some time. But as we think about where we're at in the design for our future headquarters, and we're pretty far along, going out for permit, not too far down the road. We are looking, to Dan's point, less about making permanent changes to that space and to that design, and more about how we use that design, and more spacing between individuals, whether that's workspaces, conference rooms, things like that, maybe more circulation space around. But we are not changing our overall design of the building itself, the rooms within the building, things like that.
Yeah.
How about you, Dan?
Yeah. So yeah, I guess Dean just said there was about 70% of people want to come back to the office, and I agree, and I'm ready to go. But there are also some people who never want to come back to the office ever, and they're just scared to death. And I think Stacy and I have the opportunity to move in 2022 when hopefully it'll be post-vaccine, but that's for COVID-19. What about COVID-22, right? Or something like that. I don't think we can build a virus-proof space today, right? Because I don't know what it's going to look like, and what works today may not work 3 years from now, 2 years from now. So, but I think that the things that we're doing and talking about, the social distancing, temperature checks and all that, a lot of that is just to give confidence to our employees that we are paying attention. We do care about your well-being and all that. And so what's appropriate, the appropriate level of that is what I'm struggling with. And so we've got a near-term kind of problem, and then I have a longer-term problem with the 2022 move-in. So I kind of wandered around. I'm not sure if I answered your question, Rich.
No, you did. There's a question from the
bottom line is we're all kind of trying to figure it out, and the world is changing around us, daily. I mean, the CDC guidance changes, and I don't want to react too quickly and make major like an HVAC decision today based on something that may change in a few months or a year. So, thank you.
Yeah, I think that fits with that kind of strategy of taking time to make thoughtful, considerate decisions that, especially ones that have big cost impacts. It looks like our audience is kind of a like mind. We have a very much kind of a bell curve. The first question that asked a bit about, do you envision the workplace of the future embracing these changes in a kind of a major or more minor way? And 2% of the audience said it would be about the same as before. 43% said there would be some modifications. Another 43% said it would be moderate modifications. And then 12% said it would be major modifications. Does that fit with kind of the conversations that you all have had within your organizations too? And maybe you, Adam, you've had a lot of clients that you've had these conversations with.
Yeah, Dan brought an interesting point that I want to echo. There's no silver bullet. There's no perfect situation. There's no check you can write. There's no scope you can do. There's no design you can implement or product you can buy off the shelf that's going to perfectly protect people from this or other future incidences. That might sound really foreboding and negative, but in that, I actually find hope because perfection is unattainable. None of us can be the Beyonce of COVID-19. So we have to settle to be something that's right for us, that's right for our risk profile, the work we do, and the facilities that we're in, as well as the budget constraints of our business. And due to COVID, people are in a very different budget and CapEx position than they plan to be at this point in this year. So I think, like I said previously, we are going to see thematic changes that result really from newer facilities moving the bell curve of what we need to do to create an acceptable workplace. I think in the short term, people are making modifications that are subtle. And again, to Dan's point, the new CDC guidelines from last week are great, but they're super high level and they focus on cleaning products. There's no recommended furniture standards. There's no architectural solutions. No municipality from the federal government down to local wants to be publishing anything that puts them accountable for health and safety in regards to architectural standards at this point in time. So, California just released new building code at the front end of the year. Will California lead the charge on that, as they often do in our industry? And will they bring new health and wellness architectural standards to light, like they did with Title 24 and things of that nature? Who knows? But that's at least 2 or 3 years out based on the pace at which those decisions move. So I do think, it is almost the opportunity and the responsibility for the people that are in that benefactor position of having a headquarter or a major office, a new space, a renovation, a lease renewal, et cetera, to figure out what they want to be. And if they are a leader of their industry, as everyone on today's conversation is, is it up to us to start having these dialogues and progressing that conversation and making those choices? Will wellness finally catch on fire the way that sustainability did? And probably fire is the worst analogy to use both of those situations. But the question I want to ask and the gauntlet that I want to raise is, do we feel like it's kind of our responsibility to create safe spaces and to encourage better wellness-driven decision-making as we plan for future spaces?
Stacey, you were smiling when Adam was talking about kind of the focus that some have had on, more esoteric things like just cleaning and those types of things. Does that resonate with you?
Oh, absolutely. So it's interesting. You think about a headquarters like Marriott. We have about 4,000 people in our global headquarters, and my staff of 100 or so may not have felt super important before or looked at as being super important, and all of a sudden that's done a complete 180, and they're some of the most important people to get us back to where we need to be, keep the building as clean and safe as possible for our associates returning. So yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I love that. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, just add to a couple of things said that Adam and Stacey made. I agree, Stacey, that from a visibility standpoint, all of our staffs, people are much more aware of all the roles that they play and really been educated a little bit more about all that they do. So that's a great thing. For myself, I think the balance that we're going to have to find now is that for Booz Allen anyway, probably somewhere between 30 and 40% of our workforce pre-COVID did not have assigned offices. They did a hoteling of varying types, right? And really that helped us with our utilization. I think utilization was and still will be critical for us to use space. I think it's not maybe spoken a lot right now, but I think there's a general sort of undercurrent that people look to the corporate real estate as it's going to be something that's going to reduce now. Not a lot of people are coming back, and everyone's going to continue to telework, so your footprint can get smaller. I don't think it's going to be that simple, first of all. Secondly, that hoteling component, I think because a lot more people have embraced telework, they were forced to embrace it than maybe did pre-COVID. So you can probably get people to accept the fact of a free address. You're not going to have an assigned office, but it's that cleaning, it's that uncomfortableness of sitting at a space that somebody else set up prior to, and what have you done, what protocols do you have in place, what can I do to wipe it down before I use it, and all that. So I think that's the Rubik's Cube that we've got to kind of figure out.
I think I saw a question come in our question log around what amenity spaces are changing. To couple on to that, and Stacey, you talked about some items being closed in the short term, and Dean, you kind of hinted on some of that as well. What I see are actually some new types of spaces that we haven't had before. So one of them is the mobility mudroom. With more and more mobility workforce coming to some form of hoteling station that gets cleaned at a higher frequency, and there's also this need for somewhere you can come and grab the things you need to take to a station and go do your job. So we're seeing the need for some of that sort of really agile mobility mudroom storage space. The mobility mudroom has been making me. I've also seen requests for more almost production studios where someone can go to the office, sit in a control room, maybe with some support, and lead webinars for 100, 1,000, 20,000 people, depending on what that organization needs. So more digital production, micro facilities, and things of that nature. And then, of course, the expansion of wellness as a concept, whether it's the introduction of a chief health officer for the first time for larger firms, and how those policies trickle down where before we had things that might be called the sick room, the mother's room, a lactation room. Now they're evolving into 10,000, 20,000 square foot expressions that include multi-purpose use. And I think the biggest thing is reserving casual space. That casual space can no longer be so incidental, but that it has to be purposefully earmarked for a purpose. And you're agreeing to certain terms of engagement when you use that space with them. So, there is a lot of evolution. I think the second survey question, I don't know, Rich, if you want to go through the results of that, but be curious to see what people think about the short-term and long-term effects of small and major changes.
Yeah, Adam, that's really, really interesting. Nobody, 0% thought that these changes are just temporary and only lasting as long as the pandemic. Whereas 3/4 of our audience said that some of the modifications will remain for long after the pandemic. And then 24% said that that most of the modifications will last for long after the pandemic. Only 2% said that the major modifications are here to stay. So interesting results there too. One of the things that is there's a couple questions here that have come in from the audience, and a big question, and especially as we think about modifications that are expensive and costly in terms of the physical real estate decisions, are around food service. And that's everything from break areas to full-on corporate cafeterias. Stacy, the question came in specifically for you. Are you considering any changes to what you're doing on your new headquarters campus around food service?
We are. So we were already making some modifications that will be helpful given the current situation. And realistically, as we re-enter our current headquarters, some of those will be put in place as we reopen our cafeteria, which will not be in our stage 1 plans. We need a little bit of time. We need the population up in the building before we bring that back. But mobile ordering, not walking up to the counter and ordering, you're ordering through an app on your phone, you're paying through that app on your phone, so you're not interacting with the cashier the same way you have in the past. In the future headquarters, we had already kind of put that in place, so this will be good change management for us. And there will also be self-pay stations. If you do just want to go up and grab a soda or a bag of chips, then you self-pay. You can use your phone or your app and you check out. In addition to that, I think that we actually had an hour-and-a-half meeting earlier this week just about the food service in our future building. Do the sinks, like all the hand sinks, do they need to be touch-free so that we're not all touching faucets to turn them on, those in the kitchen staff? Do we need to look at our salad bar? Think about our properties. How many Marriott properties have you stayed at where there's buffets? Can't say our buffets will be going away. It's kind of a cornerstone of who we are in our food service and our properties. But I think it's looking at how we can achieve the same desired service level and do that safely and keep people healthy.
Yeah, you mentioned two things, kind of this re-examination of all of the touch points that are in all of our lives, but especially in the office environment. And, I think there's been lots of conversation about restrooms and kind of those obvious things that fixtures there can, have over the years and can going forward be easily adapted to be touch-free. But you also mentioned kind of the, the ordering that might happen on your personal device. And it does really seem like, your personal device could become the new key to a lot of touch-free aspects of our environment. And, do our buildings get smart enough that we can start to control even more and more aspects of them with our personal devices?
Yeah,
Rich, this is Dan. So I got a presentation earlier actually about just with your phone, with the app, you can tell, you can order the the elevator, and it's smart and it tells you if there's anybody in there already. Bathrooms will tell you, if the capacity is 4, if there's 5, you have to wait, those types of things. You don't have to, we're so germophobic, pre-COVID. It's going to be on steroids from now on. I think people don't want to touch anything. So I look for a real opportunity for entrepreneurs out there to come up with these type of apps which allow us to not touch anything ever again. So.
Well, and we look at the popularity of all of the voice-activated devices that have pervaded our homes. Does that start to come to the office environment in a more significant way? And I think an obvious place that it could start would be conference rooms. And can you make an audio call, make a Zoom call by just talking to your system? Have those discussions entered into any of the planning that you all have done?
Go ahead, Stacey.
On our end, they have not. For conference rooms, I think that one of the obvious ones that some folks are starting to talk about is elevators. And can they be voice activated elevators, or to Dan's point, could that be on a mobile device so you're not pressing elevator call buttons? So I think that that's something to think about as well. But no, we have not talked about any voice activation in conference rooms at this point.
Well, and for Booz Allen, I mean, we are 100% leased portfolio. And in the vast majority of our locations, we're in multi-tenanted. So it's the elevators themselves are not something we've really got a lot of control over. Look, I mean, in some of the newer systems, you've got the single point of call. You want to go to the 13th floor, you push it, and then you go to the elevator, you don't touch that elevator, right? So I think the good thing is those types of systems, you can have someone there wiping those down almost after every touch. It's just one place to do that. But one of the things that we'll be doing is having more or less a go-to station on every floor, because no matter how well the janitorial staff cleans and how frequently and all that, you're going to want to probably grab a sanitizing wipe and some hand gel or whatever and wipe it down yourself. So that's the supplement that we will probably offer.
Just the confidence of knowing that you've done it yourself is a big part of that. Yeah.
No one drives as well in the snow as you do. All those things, right?
If you want it done right, you do it yourself. Yeah. Here's another audience question directed to Dan, Stacey, and Dean. Are you planning to use agility, flexibility as a tool to deal with COVID-22 or other future issues we may face? Or do you envision space being more fixed?
I think flexibility and even collaboration, it's still going to be a main thing. I think that's again, there are a lot of surveys going around and the numbers are fluctuating based on how long people have been teleworking and so forth, that people just miss that interaction. And for as great a tool as WebEx and Zoom and all this stuff is, I think that's going to, we need to provide that. I think that we have what I will call legacy spaces in our portfolio with primarily private offices and high wall spaces. We also have the next gen workplace concept that's very much more open and flexible. And initially, what we're finding is those next gen and more current spaces do provide a lot more flexibility, easier to get more folks in, and we're losing generally a little less of the capacity in those spaces than we are in the legacy spaces in general. There's the whole concept and thought about airflow being a lot better in those type of open areas. So, I think initially anyway, we don't really see a need to change fundamentally the open office ratio or the layouts or anything beyond much what they are right now.
Stacey, you seem to be fully in agreement with that.
I am, absolutely. Yep.
Yeah. And you too, Dan.
Rich, so we have offices, particularly overseas, that are 100% non-assigned. So it's a hotel concept all the way. So for here, we were planning on that for some portion of that for our new corporate headquarters. So this COVID is not good for that, to be sure. But on the other hand, if people don't want to come back to the office, or if they do, it's 20-40% of the time or something, we're going to have to unassign their space, and we're going to have to lower our space, our square footage requirement. And to do that, it puts more pressure on the cleaning, as Dean said, and that type of thing. So it's we have to do it, and we're going to do it, and we're going to figure out the cleaning. I mean, that's
and I think that's the big thing, though, Dan. Because I do believe that, in personal opinion, that just about everybody is going to telework more than they did pre-COVID. I mean, the people that came in 5 days a week might come in 3 days a week now, or probably 4 at the most. So, that's going to, shove that utilization down. And I think to your point, and we've tried to do that as well. Try to make, a broader segment of the population not have an assigned office.
Right, and that's the problem, that people, the guy you just described who was coming in 5 days, he wants to keep his office, right?
Exactly. He doesn't want anybody else's office.
He's coming in 2 or 3 days, and we're gonna have to take that office away from him, and he's got to share a workstation. And so if you and I are sharing a workstation, Dean, and I'm the slob, and when I leave I don't clean it well enough, and you come in and you're a neatnik, and you're gonna want it spotless, there's gonna be tension and fist fights in our office all the time. So.
Dan,
I want the guy that comes in 5 days a week, right? What about the guy that came in 3 days a week pre-COVID, and now he just wants to come in 1 day a week, and he still wants his own office? That's the battle.
That's a session for another day.
Yep,
it is. Dan, I want to come back to sort of your overseas mention that you had, and I think, Adam, I'd like to hear your perspective on that too. But first, I want to continue a little bit with this flexibility in the work environment. And I don't know if any of you previously had used shared workspaces like WeWork or any of those types of pieces of your portfolio or workspace solutions. But do you see that continuing if you did or not?
I'll answer. So we use it, probably 10% of our portfolio. So it comes in handy when, for instance, we'll win a contract somewhere, and we'll win it say July 1st, and they'll say you have to be up and running August 1st. Well, I can't go out and procure space and build it out or whatever in that amount of time frame. So I will use a co-work kind of space just to get us through that initial spot. So we will continue to use it. I'm deathly afraid of it if somebody, one of our employees gets affected, comes down with COVID while using it. Just sort of the issues we're talking about, the cleaning and all that, and sharing space. Now I know WeWork and people like that are doing a great job with cleaning their stuff, but that's what worries me about it. But it's the flexibilities I can't get away from. We need it to go forward at some point.
Wow. That seems to be a common theme. Are there lessons to be learned from other countries that have gone back to work sooner than us? I know, Adam, you've worked with some of your clients in China that have started to re-enter, and there might be some lessons to be learned there.
Yeah, what I've seen across Asia Pacific is that they actually brought populations back to the office at higher concentrations than what we're proposing now in the United States. So you see a lot of people talking about 20%, 25% in a first wave or a phase 1 return. And a lot of Asia led kind of with a 50% or greater return And then in the office, the challenges they had were related to amenities. It was, related to pantry and cafeteria areas not being able to service people because they were unwilling to purchase their lunch, whereas many people had. Now, I will say in Asia, you take a lunch break. You leave your desk, you go somewhere and you eat lunch for an hour or more. And that is standard procedure for everyone in the office. Whereas in North America, I'm certainly guilty of it. I eat most of my lunches in about 5 minutes on my desk while muted on a conference call. So we're definitely learning from that. Germany had some really profound learnings. I think it was culturally driven that they had certain expectations on returning to the office. Those expectations were not met. And so the bar for a very pristine and precise strategy of how to re-enter has been set by our German colleagues. But yeah, definitely some great learnings that we've been able to capitalize here for our.
I think another thing that we're hearing a lot from overseas is that rightfully so, people are a little wigged out about mass transit systems, right? So in some of your big metropolitan areas, people aren't going to be comfortable taking the metro or even flying. So, is that going to put more of a strain on the traffic? I mean, everyone anticipates and thinks that this is going to be a phased thing and it's not going to be a mass return back to the offices. But that said, a lot of people that maybe would have taken mass transit aren't or won't. So that's creates some parking challenges in and around our offices that we'll be keeping an eye on that. That's something else to mention.
Dan or Stacy, did you have any further thoughts on kind of the global conversations that you've had within your organizations?
Our whole company is planning a September 1st at the earliest kind of reboot. So we've kind of pushed all that and so. Okay.
I want to pivot back a little more towards, each of your organizations has, through the years, done an amazing job of building a brand, building a culture, and that the strength of who you are comes a lot from your employees. What are your thoughts on kind of the impact on the culture of the company if more and more people aren't coming into the office? Don't all talk at once.
I'll speak for me. I think it'd be devastating. I think, we were talking about earlier that 70% of the people want to come back to the office. They miss their colleagues, they miss the interaction, and I just think we do a better job. Yeah, Zoom is great, GoToMeeting is great, but it's not the same as getting us all in one room or in a conference room or something like that. And so that's what people miss. And I think our company is a consulting company. So that the ideas and things that we use to collaborate is something that really is a positive use of our culture. So I think if we can't do this forever. I mean, we can't do this forever. That's all.
Mm-hmm.
And I would say Marriott is a very culture-rich company. Our headquarters, especially, our culture. Everybody comes to the building every day. Obviously, we've had some forced change management in that we're all working remotely and have been since mid to late March. And it's different for us. So I think it will have an impact if more and more people are working remotely as the norm, as opposed to in the office. And so yeah, it would be a shame to hurt that culture, but I could see it impacting culture if people are not coming in on a regular basis.
I referenced a next gen workplace concept that we started at Booz Allen probably like 3 years ago. And the whole point of that, the whole initiative behind that was to align the culture with the workplace. which had kind of gotten a little, bit of a disconnect. So yeah, same. I'll just no sense repeating what Stacy and Dan have said, but I think it's critical. This does a lot, but it doesn't replace the face-to-face human side of things.
I think it creates opportunity, with less dedicated workstations, do we reduce our footprint and capitalize on those savings and invest that money into opportunities to connect with our staff and our employees that might be outside of the office? Or do we build spaces and reasons for them to come back to the office? And on the flip side, when we talk about corporate culture, what is the effect on our broader, as Americans, workplace culture, with more work-life balance, theoretically, by all of us working from home and being able to shut down and then be available, are we going to change the expectations on a national or international level on what it means to be a good employee and engaged and a good, member of your family and your community and other things? So I think culture goes both ways. And I think the way we design space to drive culture will become more purposeful. But I also think we got to look at, are there some benefits to the broader culture of work that happen on the other side of the scale?
I think that's a good point, and I think the jury may still be out on the work-life balance as we've all worked from home, and how separated are you from work if it's always there or at your dining room table like I am right now. That culture piece is such a important piece. I know the work that has been done, HGA has done a lot of research on Generation Z, the next big generation to enter the workforce. And, consistently we hear from them that the value they put on connecting with people is a big part of why they'll accept a job at a particular company versus another one. And they're the most connected generation, but yet they see that technology as more of a tool, and it's the people that they are looking for as part of the whole work experience for them. I'm also curious, in working with your organizations, are you, number one, kind of where are the decisions around COVID-19 and the pandemic being driven from? Is it through HR? Is it through real estate? And then are you getting pressure or questions from your C-suite about kind of what this all means, and are they really looking to you for some answers right now? Stacy, that's probably one that you've been dealing a bit with, I would imagine, given where you are in your process.
Yeah, so obviously for the impact of the reentry to our current building, I would say that facilities and HR have formed a partnership along with our occupational health group to get a medical point of view on certain things. And we are forming plans that ultimately are going to our senior leadership and going to them multiple times a week in meetings and conversations from my senior leaders and HR senior leaders up to the C-suite. And I would say that decisions are being made at the senior leadership level, but they're definitely taking a lot of advice and consult from facilities, from occupational health, and from HR. So I would say it's a good partnership. We might not all be sitting at the table together, but I think that the decisions are well guided, and ultimately senior leadership is making those decisions.
Yeah, and same here. The C-suite very much driving things. At the very top of the organization. Very supportive, and I would say proponent of the telework policy. It made it mandatory, as I said, on March 17th, and almost treating it as a separate business justification. If you want to open a facility that has been previously closed, you need to explain, why that needs to change, because in our eyes right now it's working. So
that's interesting.
We have a crisis management team also on this whole thing. daily, right? So, that's the frequency of it, and multiple subcommittees. So it's to Stacy's point, very short and sweet, but effective cadence on those meetings.
Yeah. There have been a number of audience questions. There have been lots of audience questions, which is really great. But there have been a number of them around, the kind of looking at the understanding of how effective work from home has been. Is there within any of your companies kind of a recognition or an acceptance of perhaps allowing some people to do that work from home in even more remote locations, less expensive cities to live in, or places that they're further from the real cores of downtowns?
So Rich, pre-COVID, we were not, as a company, not very open to work from home. This sort of wasn't our culture. Now we've been 100% work from home, and we're still doing fine as a company. So the feeling has changed, and now I'm getting questions like, well, why do we need this new building, Dan? Well, why do we need an office anymore? So I saw the question about moving people to, if people want to move to, Idaho or something, a less populous area. I think a lot of people can do it. If you say work from home, I don't care where your home is. I mean, if that's in West Virginia or something, that's fine. That's not for me to say. But I think in general, we are going to be much more receptive to people working from home. And like I said earlier, some people never want to come back to the office, so they're going to have to work from home.
And Adam, do you think this has landlords and those types of clients of yours nervous about a potential reduction in office space?
I think absolutely. I'm sure landlords are nervous about a lot of things, starting with rent rolls. The future of the landlord, is something that has been living in the retail world forever and now has transcended into every sector of real estate. And we do have a lot of people that are looking at reduction. It seems to be a lot of companies are falling on a 30-30-30 rule, or a 1/3, 1/3, 1/3. So 1/3 of our staff is going to stay and have dedicated space. A third will be in the office a portion of their time, and a third will never come back. And there's varying degrees of that, but that has an obvious and immediate effect on landlords and occupancy levels. So it'll be interesting to see which organizations, which big institutional landlords lead the way in making sure that their buildings are more competitive on these health and wellness and social distance features. I think that will drive new opportunities in that space we don't see currently.
Well said. Well, we're at the top of the hour here, so we want to be respectful of people's time. And are there any closing comments from anyone that you'd like to leave our audience with?
I'll just say we're all looking for that silver bullet that Adam was talking about. So if you have the answers, please let me know.
Yeah.
That is what I was
saying. Like always, somewhere in the middle lies the truth. I don't think that it's going to be forever the telework that we're in now. But I think more people will embrace it and will use it, as Dan is saying. We've been saying all along that people want to get together, and then we turn around and we say, well, people want to live in Idaho, and so somewhere in the middle it'll shake out, but I don't see a huge thing. I do think that particularly some of the agencies that we work with in these secure locations, you had a very condensed, very packed, restricted spaces. And I think this particular virus has opened the eyes to the vulnerability of that entire program. If one person got sick and infected everyone else, so I think we're going to see a lot of migration, or not a lot, but some migration of client site back to contractor's site, just to get a little bit more of a social distancing at some of those other government sites. But so we'll see. But as I said, I think somewhere in the middle lies.
Yeah, I think, well, I would probably say what has been said a couple of times by a number of you is there is no silver bullet. There's no one right solution for every organization. It really is something that each organization is going to have to work through to figure out what's right for them and how they go forward. And as we've seen in the course of all of this, it is evolving and changing, and ideas and conversations, and the more we learn about the virus itself even influences the decisions that we all have to make.
Hey, Rich.
But
Rich, if we didn't get to any questions or anybody has a specific question, I'm happy to share my contact information if anybody's interested to ask me a question.
Yep, me too.
Great.
Not me.
Not a surprise.
Yes, all this can be available on the CoreNet Mid-Atlantic website, and you should also look there for any other upcoming additional events. And I just want to thank all of you. I think this was a really great conversation, and you each brought a really unique perspective to this, and it was fun that we're able to get such a diverse group here, that you each have kind of your own view of where you're at with this and who you are. A couple other announcements. For those of you that are able to join the happy hour this evening, the special events co-chairs look forward to seeing you there. And the next CoreNet Cafe is taking place this Friday at 9:30 a.m. and that's with Brian Cotter of JBG Smith. So with that, thank you all, especially to our panelists and to all the really great, thoughtful questions that we got from our audience. We didn't get through quite all of them, but tried to get as many as we possibly could. So thank you all.
Thanks, everybody. Be safe.
Thank
Have a good day.
Yeah.
Thank you.